We'd like to begin tonight's webinar with an introduction, of course, to the first speaker and our moderator. Okay, so our first speaker is Eileen Goncalves. Eileen Gonzalez is the artistic director of Butterfly Theater Company, which she founded in 2011, having had an impressive career as a professional actor who has worked with the RSC over the years. Butterfly Theater Company is known for its site-responsive, immersive productions, which include performances of Shakespeare inside prehistoric caves. In April 2021, she launched Shakespeare and Meisner, a book she co-wrote with Dr. Tracy Irish and published by Bloomsbury for the Arden Performance Companion series. To help us facilitate the conversation, we also have invited a very special guest to moderate the discussion. We have another artist/academic who is very experienced with Shakespeare's works, both on stage and in the classroom, Miss Missy Maramara. Missy is an assistant professor teaching with Ateneo's Fine Arts and English departments, and she's also a professional actor holding an MA in drama from the University of Arkansas, and having worked with several theater groups both in the US and in the Philippines. From her very extensive acting career, some notable Shakespeare roles include Lady Anne, Ophelia, Desdemona, and Catherine. Definitely as someone who has been this much immersed in Shakespeare performance and whose teaching focuses on theater acting and the history of drama, Missy is very much equipped to be moderator for the discussion with Eileen. So here to speak with us about teaching Shakespeare through performance, please welcome Eileen Gonzalez.
Hi, everybody. Hello, lovely to see you. Hello, lovely to be here with you all today. And fantastic to be doing this with you all. It's been a fantastic week and I'm very excited to be part of it and to be coming on the last day here to talk to you. And I think I'm here with Missy, which has been a great pleasure for me. So we had a quick chat this morning, Missy and I. So it's very interesting, this question of Shakespeare and the classroom, the title of this talk, because in so many ways, Shakespeare, we are always in the classroom. I just thought when I saw the title read out there again, it just suddenly occurred to me, the classroom is the classroom of life. We're all living this life. And I believe Shakespeare really is an amazing teacher for living life as a human being. And I have a theatre company called Butterfly Theatre Company. And I'm very lucky to work with people in an ensemble theatre company and to really, really work hard at being that true ensemble and all the principles of ensemble theatre, which I think could be fantastic principles for living an amazing community life. If we had those principles in our lives, how extraordinary that would be. The collaboration, the equality, it's all the things we dream about really for the world. And luckily in theatre, we get to play that out. Theatre, I think, in many ways is the microcosm of life. It is the thing that, it's the place where we're in an environment where all the people are there and we go through human emotions. Hopefully, if the acting's good and the play's good and nothing's distracting us, we go through the emotions of our lives and we feel that connection. And so we experience life. It's like a little life simulator, and we can practice anger and jealousy and hatred, all those emotions that we find difficult, and we can experience joy and peace, the feelings that we don't often connect to in everyday life. How do we get those things into our everyday life is another question. But when we go to the theatre, it's all kind of it's kind of very focused in and it's condensed, and it's this very condensed, intense version of living. And of course, with Shakespeare, the reason I love Shakespeare, and a lot of my work has been with Shakespeare, and I work, as was just saying, Nikki was saying, at the Royal Shakespeare Company. I've done a huge amount of work over there, over a decade really, and it's always wonderful to be surrounded by Shakespeare and be able to really work with his words and the stories and the characters. And every time you do a new play, you get to go through that whole process of whatever journey those characters are on. I'll say something now that I say to everyone who I teach or work with, and I'm so brilliant, I can't see you all, but I'm going to send this out to all of you, just to remind us of something which is at the heart of my work with professional actors, but also definitely with teaching. It's to remind us all that we are unique on this earth. Such a basic statement, but sometimes we forget it. And it is at the beginning of every single thing I do. And I think it has a huge link to teaching Shakespeare and acting Shakespeare. But just to remind us, we are unique on this earth. I mean, it's so amazing. You're in the Philippines. I'm in Bournemouth this week working on a dance show. So I'm not even in London, but I'm in England, and you're in the Philippines, and people are here from all around the world. We are unique on this earth of all these billions of people. There is nobody like us. There's nobody like you. Nobody sees things like you see them, or hears things like you hear them, or tastes or touches or smells things the way that you do. It's an extraordinary thing, and it's just a fact. We are unique on this earth. And the whole of human history, there's never been anyone like you. The whole future of humanity, nobody like you. And why that becomes extraordinary when you're talking to actors or young people is, one, we really do need to hear that thing, because it's not just that we are unique. We are unique artists. And unique artists have a special responsibility, I think, which is that to express that uniqueness. And we hopefully have the skills, if we've been trained at drama school or wherever in colleges, to be able to express it through our mouths, through our bodies, through our ways that we learn about expression. So what is inside us, the unique thing inside us, can come out into the world. But we also all have a point of view. So it's a unique point of view, and that's the thing I'm most interested in when it comes to working with actors and with students, because that unique point of view has to be given a safe environment to be expressed. We really need to hear everybody's unique point of view. At the moment now, we're having big conversations about diversity around the world, which is amazing. But I've always said we are diverse as we are unique. The diversity is that every person adds to the diversity, every unique quality. And how do we pull out the unique qualities as teachers, as directors? How do we encourage that uniqueness to come out and to feel safe and give permission for it to be expressed? Because what we really need in this world, I think, is to communicate. We need to learn how to communicate, because we have all this diverse points of view. Actually, we need to communicate and be able to sort of inspire people to our way of thinking, or to convince people of something, or to, pull people over to our side, and then have to moderate when we have to be influenced by other people's opinions and points of view. And of course, Shakespeare is the king of showing characters with different points of view, which I think is a glorious thing in Shakespeare, and why I love to work on it. We talk about walking in another person's shoes, but what about seeing through the eyes of another character? Seeing through the eyes of another person's experience, looking at someone saying, how is it for you? How is it for you? What was it like getting up and having breakfast for you today? And I think Shakespeare does this by showing us the different points of view in one character. When we look at Macbeth, we feel sorry for a murderer, a mass murderer. Why? We feel sorry for his wife. It's extraordinary that he makes us see the different points of view, which reminds us that we are human. We are human beings, we are frail, we are not perfect. Oh, thank goodness, we're not perfect. And that imperfection is our greatest thing, because it means that we can change. We now know some stuff, don't we, about the brain being, neuroplasticity. My colleague, Dr. Tracy Irish, who hopefully lots of you met yesterday, who is brilliant, she knows about these things. So I always need her at my side when I start veering into that area. But essentially, it's that thing of that our brains can change. How amazing we can change. We are susceptible to change. And theatre has this great power to influence. But as talking to Missy earlier, and we were sort of saying about how sometimes Shakespeare is pushed away from people. It's seen as not accessible. We don't want everybody to be doing it. And historically, it's definitely been something that is maybe for the more elite people in society, and as a way of, it can feel quite hard to access. So education is the game changer, because in education you can help people realise that Shakespeare is for them. People often ask me and talk to me about colonialism and Shakespeare and different things about that. And I always say, but I've never understood that. I was born in Kenya and I originate from Goa in India, which was run by the Portuguese for many years. And I came to England in the 1970s with my family. We came as refugees in the 70s to Britain, and I've lived here ever since. And I was brought up my kind of teenage years in a place called Newbury in Berkshire, which is the most English town in the country. It was actually called Thatcher's Town, Margaret Thatcher's Town, because it represented so much the kind of ideals of Margaret Thatcher's England. I loved it there. I was the only brown person in the school of 1600, and we were the only brown family in the town. It was an extraordinary experience. I mean, I didn't feel anything about that, except I learnt hugely how to adapt and how to change who I was with different people. So acting, of course, becomes that way of changing and shifting. But why I'm talking about that is I've got a huge different background there, but I've never seen anything other than Shakespeare being mine. And for me, because it expresses my emotions. Any Shakespeare that I work on expresses how I'm feeling. It gives me words. It's such a relief. I love to work with teenagers because they have so much changing emotion and heightened emotion. And they are brave enough and fearless enough and don't really care and can't help it for it to come out. But now somehow Shakespeare matches, particularly, I'd argue, teenagers' expression. Often when I say something's good or something's bad or brilliant, I swear. That's the only language I have, is to kind of curse. And it's the same word for when something's brilliant or when something's terrible. I have such a limited vocabulary in myself. And I think these days it's getting even more limited. I don't know how it could possibly be more limited, but we're reducing ourselves to sort of letters and emojis. But Shakespeare gives us words. I mean, literally, Shakespeare gives us words for every single emoji you can think of. And I think it's so interesting how we've had to find emojis for expression, because we need that image, we need that metaphor, we need that kind of, again, Tracy is the person to talk to about metaphors, but we need that visual thing. And Shakespeare really does hand us that on a plate, billions of them, millions of them, and such extraordinary ones. And it helps us now understand each other. So my passion for Shakespeare is that it helps with human connection. Because whatever our brilliant differences, the thing we share, the thing we share is emotion, our feelings, the thing that goes on inside all of us, the unseen stuff, the invisible stuff, where our heart stops, where we get choked, where our heart beats really fast when we're excited, when we fall in love, and we have all these resilient sensations. All the confusions of inside our mind. So it's inside our mind, inside our heart, inside our body. He joins those three things up in everything he says and does. So you do one line of Shakespeare and it can change your life, I believe, and to hear it or to act it, truly. And I would lastly say to read it, which is very controversial, I'm sure, on a panel such as this, but my heart is in performing Shakespeare. And when I say performing, I just mean standing up and speaking it out loud. Because when you do that, and when you do that with somebody else, I mean, there's really nothing quite like it, because you suddenly have words to express what you're feeling. And the more you speak it, the more you go, oh my gosh, I've got more words to express how I'm feeling. And so then more feeling comes up and you have the expression for it. But the key into that is we have to help students understand it. And understanding, I believe, comes from that expression. So even if they don't logically understand every single word they're saying when they first speak it, because a genius has written it, it is beyond us. But he has written it and it is beyond us, but we can get, it allows us. You cannot speak the words, the consonants and the vowels and the way that it's put together, the alliteration, the formation of the words, how they bang against each other. His choice of words and the way it's constructed, that in itself makes us feel. But I believe only when you really speak it, because your body hears it, your mouth resonates with it, it goes through your being and creates that expression. And I think that's the key thing for teaching of Shakespeare, is getting it into people's bodies and hearts, because it opens our hearts to when you perform Shakespeare with truth. So this comes back to my life's work, really, which is about truthful, authentic connection in acting. And that for me is my passion, and Meisner is my route into it. He's a practitioner. And oh yeah, our book is brilliant, Shakespeare and Meisner, which I've co-written with Dr. Tracy. And that's really kind of is a great book, because it's very accessible, and it's for teachers and actors and directors, and it has lots of practical exercises. So do get that if you can into your libraries, because it's really, really simple to access and gets you to the heart of this stuff. And the heart of this stuff, summed up so eloquently there by me, you can tell I need Shakespeare's help all the time with expression. But it's about being able to really bring yourself, that unique self, to the role. And that's why I started talking about uniqueness and got distracted. The reason why being unique is so important, and luckily you all are, is that, you know, Missy's Juliet is going to be different to Nikki's Juliet. For one simple reason, is that this totally three-dimensional, unique, extraordinary creature is playing it. You know, this is the core of my work. There's no such thing, here we go, as Juliet. There we go. We lost 10 people off the call. I don't believe there's any such thing as Juliet, until it was just, David Mamet spoke about it very glibly, which I still think is brilliant in his book True and False, if anyone's read that, for acting. But he said, you know, it's black marks on a white bit of paper, written over 400 years ago, until it becomes Missy's Juliet or Nikki's Juliet, until the actor embodies that thing. And then it comes to so much life, and more life than I think we are seeing currently being done on our stages. I'm very outrageous to say, you know, there is a great passion to do Shakespeare everywhere, because everybody loves it, but there's many blocks, I think, to doing it truthfully and simply. Actually, you know, we always talk about trusting the words, but I'd say trust each other, trust yourself. You know, I think many people want to think, I must play Juliet, I must change and become Juliet. What about if Juliet comes to you? What about if, I desperately want to see Missy's Juliet, I can tell you that now, I haven't talked to her, but you know, we want to see you in the given circumstances of Shakespeare's Juliet, and then we get a completely unique creature that is alive today and relates to me as an audience watching today. So when I'm in a classroom, how fabulous is it to be with young people and say, yeah, no, we want your version of these characters. We want your version of these characters. You know, this is why it can be so alive. I'm talking way too much, I've seen the time. I want to show you some videos of my work with Butterfly, which will sum up all of this a lot better. But just before I do that, because I'm still going to interrupt myself, the work that I do is site-specific in the majority. I work at the Royal Shakespeare Company and do stuff in the Swan Theatre there and the other place, and generally the theatres. And I work in theatres all over the place. But my great passion is to do site-specific, or we call it site-responsive, immersive shows. So we do shows in caves, underground caves, Macbeth, which is amazing, castles, Romeo and Juliet, and Twelfth Night, everything. We do all the Shakespeares. Whatever the Shakespeare is, we manage to fit it into a cave or a castle or forests. And until you've seen Midsummer Night's Dream in an actual enchanted wood, It's just indescribable when you see the plays in an environment. The audience promenade with us around the space. They come, we pull them in, they're immersed, they're terrified when it's Macbeth in a cave and three witches are sniffing around in the dark. And then we pull them through that environment, you know, and it is a unique experience and very memorable. And I wish it for all of you to come and see our shows. I tell you now, I'm looking for caves around the world to do a world cave tour of Macbeth. I'm very happy to start in the Philippines, just throwing that out there. But you know, so the point is it's so extraordinary to do Shakespeare anywhere, because it is human beings, and human beings are everywhere in every environment. So if you do it in an environment and the other human being audiences are watching, suddenly we're in this very different exchange. You know, if Macbeth turns round to you and you are literally 1 foot away and you've just seen him discussing with the murderers that he should, yeah, that's why he's killing, he's killing Banquo, he sets up that whole thing. And then he turns to the audience, they were right there, who have seen him talking to the murderers. They've seen the whole play up to this point. And he knows it because they're with him there. And he turns to the audience and says, "To be thus is nothing. Come on. Agree with me, it's to be safely thus." And the audience is looking at him, and his objective is to get that audience to agree with him. So now suddenly they're all going, "Yeah, I guess so, our fears in Banquo stick deep. Come on, agree with you." The whole way he does the speech is looking for that agreement from an audience that is 1 foot away from him in the dark. With holding his little candle. We had an amazing review once that said, "I've woken up this morning and I feel a bit guilty because I think I encouraged him to kill Banquo to kill Banquo." We implicate the audience in everything. I do want to show you a video.
Missy, can you hear me? It's Tracy.
Yes. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, I thought I'd just jump in.
Yes, please.
So I think what Aileen was talking about, if you keep scrolling down, there is a video, that's it. So if you can see there on the left, you can see a child. So that's the video she was talking about the schools project that we did in Torquay, where we worked with groups of primary students. So they were between 9, 10, 11 years old. And we worked with them and we took them, they did kind of performance of Macbeth that we divided into 4. So there were 4 classes that did the whole play, a short version. And this is a video about that. So I think that's the one she was talking about to play, because she was sent to the caves as well as the schools project.
Oh, Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth. Cannot take the fear. What's the boy, Malcolm? To make them kings, the seed of Banquo kings. All hail Macbeth and Banquo, Banquo and Macbeth, all hail! Having the different people as Macbeth, it actually shows you, it sort of gives you that, oh, they've changed now, that, like, actually seeing them as a different person makes you feel like, oh, now does this person now represent like sadness?
It was amazing. They're so young to be learning Shakespeare, and the way they remembered their words, and the way we travelled through. It's amazing.
I think it's about the opportunity to work with professional actors and directors that brings a whole new dimension to learn those new techniques.
We did a day of training with those teachers beforehand, where we tried a few activities out with them, we took them through the script.
Our teacher didn't really know what they were doing at first, so we had to try and help her, and then she was trying to help us at the same time.
I feel good that they're actually letting us all have our ideas, and we decide, maybe getting a little bit of arguments and maybe in our heads think, I don't really like that, but after a while we sort it out and we think it's amazing. To be this is nothing.
Yeah, you can stay there. It's really powerful.
The children that I didn't think would rise to the occasion just flourish and really come out of their shells.
Doubtful it stood, as 2 spent swimmers had to cling together and choke their art.
Doubtful it stood.
I was quite nervous to begin with. Working with Shakespeare is something that I'm not familiar with myself.
You would normally be in like a
on
theatre or
stage.
yeah, and
On
it's
stage
just nice to
performing.
come here
You normally
and
want
have
a
loads
stage
of little dibs and cracks to hide in and stuff.
Yeah.
One of the main things about the project is that it's given me a whole range of teaching strategies that I can use whenever I'm working on drama with the pupils, whenever we're exploring Shakespeare or actually other challenging literature.
Travel, travel, toil and travel, fireman and cold and rebel. Cool it with a baboon's blood and charm it firm and good. By the prison of my thumb, something wicked this way comes.
There's something about the caves, I think, that gave them a lot of confidence just to play again. You know, there's something about being on a stage, perhaps, which makes you feel you have to behave and perform in a certain way. Whereas if you're in a cave like this, those sorts of rules are taken away, and therefore you can be more playful because you have to be.
So it has been the most amazing process for us to be down here and share the butterfly approach and the way that we do things in butterfly, but with very young children. And we're absolutely hoping to do it all over the country and at a weird venue, whether it's underground or up in the sky or anywhere you can think of.
It was brilliant. It was like the children were amazing.
I thought it was absolutely wonderful. Kids were brilliant.
I thought it was amazing. We've come along tonight to support my son and just to see the children and the amount of words that they've learned, and especially Shakespeare, has been amazing to see.
Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell.
That was absolutely delightful. Those kids are amazing, and the work you did with them was great.
Is she still frozen?
Oh, great.
Aileen, are you with us?
It's so great to see that one, I think. I can hear you. I can hear Tracy. Right, okay, I'm going to do something else.
I'm just going to keep talking for a bit because
Yes.
something that jumped out, I'm watching that video again while Aileen's sorting herself out, was, if you notice the boy at the end who was playing Macbeth, that was just a really lovely moment because how he was delivering the "Is this a dagger" speech, and how we worked with him. We set it up as a game. So I don't know if you know, it's a really simple children's game we call it Grandmother's Footsteps, where there's one person at the front and they turn their back to everybody else, and then everybody else kind of creeps. That's it. Yeah, you're doing it, Missy.
We call that Pepsi 7-Up in the Philippines.
Oh,
and
really?
There we have it. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. So we set it up as a game like that, and to help him kind of find the rhythm of the lines. What we did was we said, okay, you're going to say this speech, and the witches are kind of creeping up behind him. And then every time he got to a full stop, he turned round.
Wow.
So it kind of set up this lovely rhythm, but it also set up this beautiful kind of atmosphere of the tension of the witches creeping up behind him. So it's a really nice example of how playing games with young children can kind of really help them to get into the language of the work as well.
Games that they resonate with, right? Games that they actually play.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And not just like games that they watch, but games that they actually have to use their bodies with.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yes. And it gave such a lovely visual effect then as well to when we watched the performance. Aileen, are you there? I can see you.
Oh, you're still muted, Aileen.
Hello.
Yay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
How's that? Oh, sorry, everyone. Well done, Tracy. I heard Tracy speaking there. Yeah, no, I love to work with Tracy. Great that she's reappeared. So Tracy and I did this amazing project with those children in those caves. And as you can see, the caves are such an extraordinary environment. So we get to respond to that, and the plays, of course, respond to that hugely. It's interesting because Tracy is an academic but is also incredibly creative and artistic. And I'm a recent academic, having co-written this book with Tracy. But I consider myself more a kind of artist who works in the world. But we're together. We're the title of your talk, really, because we have found our way of joining together. Tracy helps me absolutely get much more clarity in what I'm doing and gets more out of the sense of the words. But also, she's such a great audience because she is always pushing back against me because I'm always wanting, because I get so connected to the emotion of it, I forget the thinking bit of it. And this is the genius of Shakespeare. Again, it's thinking, feeling, and it's physically feeling as well. So, you know, we're a good package together, I think, and that's why the book is great, because you've got those two things. And I spent, especially with teachers, it's so important because, of course, teachers are having to cover academic things. And this is the glorious challenge. Because the danger is, but I think for schools and teachers, is that we place the logic and the thinking and the understanding from the mind only, from the sense only. You know, sometimes I say to the students, tell us what you think that something means before looking it up in the notes, before looking it up at the back. What if you just tell me what you think you feel that means, having just said something? And, you know, it's interesting. There is right in many ways, as all the academic books that give you 10 different versions of what a line means. You know, it is really what it means to somebody in the moment. And of course, then a teacher has to then go, yes, it could be that, and it could be that, and it really could be. This is what's astounding about working with young people. They realise very quickly that you're not saying as a teacher or as a director, this is the meaning, and I'm teaching you to reach it. Because actually with Shakespeare, we have to hear the student's interpretation of what is a meaning of something. And then we have to bring some logic about, well, let's look at the other words around it. Does it make sense, the thing you've just said? Let's look at the person who's saying it. Does it make sense, that thing you've said? Why have you said that thing? Okay, you've said that it feels prickly. So look at actually, and then we go to the notes in the back of the book and say, actually, look at the word it is a thorn. It's a gorse bush. What's a gorse bush? Ah, that is prickly. You know, so what happens that students, particularly young students, go, oh, wow, the teacher is listening to me. Something I'm saying out of my mouth is influencing the teacher. And that is unusual. And especially when it's on something that we think is this very difficult, profound thing that's beyond us, suddenly we think we have interpreted Shakespeare. And I think young people are the best because they definitely think it's for them until someone tells them it isn't. You know, they totally own it completely. They have no qualms about it at all. It's as we get older, we start feeling disengaged from it. So our great passion in Butterfly is to do theatre that is truthfully connected. And we do that through using the Meisner technique is our way in. And I've developed a thing called the Gonsalves method, which builds on Meisner. And I really recommend all of you to look at Meisner's stuff, because he said a very simple, tiny, simple statement, which was, you can't say ouch until you've been pinched. So acting is reacting. So you get pinched and you go ouch. You can't rehearse ouch in your bedroom at home. I mean, that's such a weird idea for me at times, even still now, rehearse in our bedroom at home how we are going to speak the lines. I'm going to give you a really big tip now for working with Shakespeare that will blow your minds probably because it's slightly radical. I insist that the lines are learnt without inflection. And any actor that has tried to do that, we're going to put Missy on the spot in a minute, but has tried to do that with Shakespeare will tell you it's almost impossible. And we have to do it in such a perverse way. I'm going to show you, you'll laugh. I'm going to give you the reason why. So, because Shakespeare has a weight behind it of history, and all the other academic things, not that it's the academics that have caused this, but the history of Shakespeare and how it's been used in education and in colonialization and in making people feel less equal to other people. It's been used through history in many, many ways to do that, the language itself, the way people work with it. But also just the basic thing of famous people now saying the lines in films. Film now is a big problem because we have absolute interpretations of what we think a play is, Shakespeare play is, because of a film. What that gives us is a thing I called appropriatism in Shakespeare, which is that we end up giving our appropriate version of.
Yes, we are having some difficulties, but I would like to just kind of say how this is so wonderful, because she's talking about how to get out of the idea that there's an appropriate way to do Shakespeare, and to approach it through just saying the lines full on, non-stop, like to be or not to be, that is a question whether it is nobler in the mind. So without, memorizing it with a way of saying it. And sometimes when we watch films and great actors perform it, we tend to copy it, right? But through, I think, the Meisner technique and the Gonsalves technique that she developed from all of that, she's able to help actors get out of that kind of, this is the right way to do Shakespeare, So she greatly encourages us really just standing up and doing it. And we'll ask her a lot of questions when she comes back. I love how Ma'am Judy Ick curated all of the talks from the first day when Michael Dobson and Ricky Abad talked about the relevance of learning Shakespeare, and how Lucy Bailey said about falling into the pursuit of Shakespeare. She wasn't like on the onset, like, I'm going to go for it, but she found herself doing it and she can no longer imagine anything else. And then Abigail and Tracy Irish talked about cutting Shakespeare, creating new work from old skin. And here is Eileen doing just that, right?
I'm back again.
Yeah,
doing just that. It's interesting, Missy, I just caught the end of that. But yeah, cutting. Yes, I'm very outraged about cutting, because you need less of it. I can't. It's young people and everybody in the whole world finds it hard to sit through a whole Shakespeare play, I would argue. It's the first thing that I think makes it inaccessible. It's it's an incredibly hard ask, and we are scared of it already. We haven't even sat down because we know we're going to be sitting in there for 3.5 hours. I can't even conceive it anymore. Interestingly, when I work at the RSC, they do full-length versions, and I've worked on shows where I have to watch it over and over again. And of course, I love watching the full-length versions myself, but that's because it's my great passion. But if you don't know Shakespeare, it's such a mean thing to do, make someone sit for 3.5 hours and watch it, when it's so hard to understand. Because it's hard to understand because I believe it's not being done in a way that truthfully connects us to it. And that, I think, does lie in some part with the actors and the actor training. I was the head of the MA in acting at Arts Ed Drama School. I was head of acting at Drama Studio London. I spent years going, actually, what I need to do is get into drama schools and teach there. And so we shift the acting there. I believe actors are much more integral part of this whole process with Shakespeare productions, because the actors can help us access it if they themselves are truthfully connected. Because I believe very strongly that we feel what the actor feels in that moment. That is the power of the actor. And any actors listening need to know this. This is your power. You have the power to make an audience feel heartbroken, feel like they've fallen in love for the first time, feel like they are so jealous that they could kill someone, feel the ambition in them that they hide all the time. They get to feel it. Because the actor is feeling it in that moment. And that is the genius of the Meisner now. Meisner meeting Shakespeare, I think, is exciting, because when I saw Meisner and saw this incredibly truthful, engaged exercise called repetition, when I saw that connection between the actors, I suddenly went, why is the most truthful writing on earth not being done by matched with the most truthful acting? And that's what I set out to try and achieve. And I realized I had to create a process to go from this very simple, truthful connection of repetition. Meisner calls it living truthfully. It's an exercise that trains you to be connected. Definitely look it up. Do classes if you can in Meisner. It really does immediately change how you think about acting, because it makes you alive and connected truthfully. And Missy's nodding there. But now he said under a given set of circumstances. So the first of those circumstances, I'd argue, is lines. We come into the lines. And if you think about it, are there any books on line learning? Not many. One has just come out, because I was wanting to write one, and I saw that one has just come out. I actually haven't looked at it. But that is one. It's the one thing that actors have to do in this world. And no one talks about line learning. You know, it's just a thing that people do. And often actors will learn lines inflected. They will learn the lines like they want to act the part. And with Shakespeare, it's very hard to learn lines not inflected, because he is shouting at you from the grave. I mean, he turns in his grave whenever I do anything, because we butcher that text when we're learning the lines. So I'll give you an example. You know, Lady Macbeth, come you spirits. So we do it, the first stage we learn that is called robot. So it's completely dead. So come you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe top full after. I've lost another 10 people now, Missy. But we do this because, so that's stage one. Now, of course, that is a pattern in itself. And we have to be that perverse, because honestly, Shakespeare is pulling you with the rhythm, the rhyme. Tracy and I are always having debates actually about whether we should go with the iambic with this, so it's uninflected, but you're still in the iambic. I think our latest round of debate about that is yes. The answer is to stay in the line ending. So you do line at a time. But experiment for yourselves in this. The next thing that you do is up and down the scale. So come you. So Missy, I'm going to make you do this actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So see how hard it is to do, because Missy will try to do it. And oh, wow, look, Missy's unbelievably got the text there. So that's very good. Yeah, you can go from the raven himself, his horse, if you want, and not do the iambic. That might be useful. So try and do it unreflected, Missy, and just see how hard it is to do.
The raven himself is horse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come
okay, great.
Okay.
Great. What's that like to do? Do you learn lines like that anyway, Missy? Is that an unusual thing to do?
Anton Juan had taught me how to do that. He told me, stop inflecting. So
yeah, good. So it's very impressive. And then what we do then is, because that is a pattern in itself, that's now a robot pattern, which is very dangerous. So you have to actually do it again now, Missy, but go up and down the scale.
And down. Now that I have not done.
So completely random. This is very important, because if you just do a monotone, it's very hard to break out of that.
Okay.
So as quickly as you can. Yeah.
And this is like per syllable, up and down. The raven himself is horse.
Yeah.
That croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. Come you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty.
Okay, we've definitely lost 50 people now at this point off this call. I mean, this is what's so interesting. It's very hard to do this with a voice teacher in the room or any academic person in the room, because it's painful.
Right.
It's painful to fight against what Shakespeare's asking us to do all the time. But there is such a payoff. So you have to pursue this and be patient. Try it, all of you, on just one speech, what I'm suggesting here, and see what it's like. Because once you've done that, like Missy's done, and Missy, describe how that feels to do that, because it's very weird, I know. You're doing it very well.
Counterintuitive, like...
Yeah, totally.
Like it didn't have that musicality that you expect of Shakespeare. It breaks the preconceived notions of how it's supposed to sound.
It definitely does that. It breaks your heart sometimes to do it like that. But what's interesting is, because you feel you know the purpose, the actors know the purpose, and butterfly actors will turn up at rehearsals on day one with the lines learnt like that. So the whole company will go around, and we then do various exercises. We throw things at each other. We grab for cues, because the other important thing is the cues. So we'll run like that with each other, but we won't look at each other. How perverse is that? If you want anything more perverse, you run lines like up and down, not looking, and then you grab things for your cue. So you don't pass them, you grab them. The distinction there is because it's really helpful, because that helps us not pause. Oh my God, the death of Shakespeare, he dies so many times, poor man, is pausing. Sis Berry used to say, I think, the play starts and the pause doesn't come until the last full stop. Now, obviously, she's the genius of caesuras and of the half lines as well. So Shakespeare gives us the pauses in the iambic. I'm sure someone's talked about that this week. The idea that the iambic has breaks in it. That is the pauses. That's great. It's his help there. Be helped by him. People always say to me, gosh, you're so clever directing Shakespeare. And I say, it's so easy. Of all the things to direct, and that's why I've done it for a million years. I can't bear it when I have to do a modern play and I have to actually think, how shall I do this? Because Shakespeare just does everything for you. He gives you everything, gives you the rhythm, the beats, tells you when they come on, where they come on from, in the language, in those pauses, in that moment he leaves for the stage directions as well. He has a pause because he realizes someone needs to enter. He has a pause because he realizes someone has to climb up to a thing. Or he suggests that's maybe when they kiss, is that pause. Oh, it's just so clever. It's so you just get to just work with him and not do any work, quite frankly. So I highly recommend working with Shakespeare as a way to understand. If you trust it, if you don't think, what shall I do? Just read it and see what out loud. As soon as you read it out loud with someone connected, you see the games. So stage one, that's all about the lines. So once the lines are learned with that kind of really, it's madness. We sound like we're mad. We go around like that endlessly, over and over again. We'll run lines like that before every show.
Wow.
We'll run before every show, we'll just bang through the lines. That's the other reason for not doing full-length versions. So while we're setting up in the caves, we're banging through those lines. The reason being that now, it's quite a weird reason, in the company and in the Gonsalves method and in Meisner, trust is the biggest imperative. You have to trust the other actor completely. And if you know they have their lines, because you've just run the lines, you can trust them 100%. Something else when you're learning the lines is you need to look at something else. Your eyes, so Missy, I'm going to teaching you some stuff, Missy, while we do this, but your eyes need to be looking at the mug as you're saying the lines. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and feel. Come, you spirits that tend on. Try that, actually, Missy. Your attention, all your attention is on the thing you're looking at and you're trying to speak.
Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of the direst cruelty. I'm going to try the up and down.
Slow down a bit.
Oh, sorry. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from crown to the toe top full of the direst cruelty. That's great.
What's that like?
It's amazing. It's really liberating.
But
Eileen,
do you know?
Sorry, go ahead.
You speak. My gosh, don't let me speak. You speak.
Did you do this with the kids? And how did they take it? Were they automatically just like, yay? Or
the kids, more than anybody else, know how to learn lines. The younger they are, the more they don't care about what anything means. If you just say, learn that, get on with it, hurry up. They're very, very quick at learning. They're very quick at learning Shakespeare because of the rhyme and the rhythm, because they just follow that. Now, why adults because adults then want to think, what's it about, what's happening, what's my motivation? So all of that pressure happens at the same time as learning the lines. Mm-hmm. It's madness. Just learn them, get them in the back of your head. I say it's like learn lines beyond learning. I developed this because my grandmother, I talk about it in the book, but my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and in Goa, there's a bell that rings for the Angelus, a Catholic prayer that happens every day at the same time. The village bell in the church will ring. They all hear it in the whole village. So she had Alzheimer's and dementia, and she was very beautiful and quiet and just would sit quietly and didn't speak at all the whole day. But when that bell rang, she would stand up and recite this huge prayer. And my aunt would do the call and responses. Then they would do the whole rosary prayer. And then she would sit down again. Every day. She was 96. So you're like, wait a minute, this is totally weird. And of course, the family were like, oh, it's a miracle. Every day it's the same miracle. And I'm meanwhile going, this is interesting, because it was a cue. The bell was a cue. It triggered a memory of these lines that she'd learned beyond learning. She'd been saying that since she was 7 years old every day at that time. That's 90 years It triggered, it came out, it triggered it. So that was my massive moment of insight there. And I then came back to London and went, we just don't know the lines well enough. Because I could see the company were always holding on, still holding on. And when you hold on with Shakespeare, that's when you make it into something. That's when your brain goes, oh, I'm going to make it appropriate. That's when the brain has a chance to come in and go, oh, do it like this. But if you are not thinking at all, where can your attention be if it's not in your head looking for lines?
Scene partner.
Scene partner. And Missy, you're great. You're very well trained, Meister actor. You're saying scene partner. I'm going to push you to go scene partner, cave, weather. Every single thing around you, you can have your attention on. Your attention is now outwards. It's out. And it's in this moment. And you now become dependent on your other actor. You're entirely dependent on your other actor. So in a classroom, this is fascinating. You make the children become dependent on each other to do well. So if their partner has not learnt their lines, and as we say this certainly to actors, what's the only thing you can do if your performance is dependent on them? Help them. You have to help them. You can be annoyed about it. You can complain all the time, but you also have to help them.
It's about being accountable. It's about being accountable for your scene partner, for your friends, for your fellow actors.
Well, your investment is in them because you understand we are in this together. I will be good in my part as Lady Macbeth if Macbeth is good. Because my performance, that's acting is reacting.
Right.
Acting is, if we believe that statement, every actor you ask will go, yes, 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 I believe that statement. Acting is reacting. And then I say, when did you last do it? Because I'm really naughty. But the point is we don't do it. Because if we truly did it, then I will give over my performance as Lady Macbeth to Macbeth.
Right.
If acting really is reacting, it's not about me, it's about them.
I love that.
So it's interesting premise. And as a director, when I teach directors and teachers, I say, if person A, if Lady Macbeth is not doing well, check how Macbeth's doing. Look over there. Because if you have actors that are tuned into each other, you always have to look at both sides of it. You know, if you want one character to be angrier, it might be that the other character needs to help provoke them more. You know, there's a balancing act to that, because then the actors go, they're not making me angry, which is absolutely not allowed. But essentially, it's this thing that it's cause and effect. Now, the best beneficial thing of cause and effect is the point I'm probably always trying to get to in my talks, which is that suddenly the audience understand that something live is happening in front of them. That not one person on the stage knows exactly what is going to happen next, because they are just seeing and responding, seeing the actors seeing and responding in that moment. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have blocking and that the words are never changing, especially if they're Shakespeare, having cut them to smithereens. They're not changing at that point. So, the words are the same. The blocking can even be the same. In a cave, it's never the same, but blocking can be the same. What is different is that moment to moment, it is alive. It is alive. So the audience understand, they feel it intuitively, that their laughs are changing the production. That's a fact. This is a fact that nobody will accept. The audience laughter, the audience silence, the audience gasping, the audience coughing affects the rhythm of the show. So then the production is changed. That's why it is different every night, because it has to be. The whole earth has rotated on its axis. We've changed every cell in our body, but still we think we can do the same show.
And I want to say different object. It's a different play because it's a completely different audience.
Completely. And so it's not only why do we want to try and achieve the same thing, how? We go beyond science here, but no, we say the most horrific phrase in English theatre. It actually hurts me. It's interesting how much it still hurts me. That at the dress rehearsal, at the final preview or whatever of a show, the director will say, and this message will go out through the whole theatre, on the tannoy, everywhere, we have locked down the show.
Oh no! Mark it. That's it. Lock it in. Oh no. Okay.
The phrase is so outrageous, and for people who deal with language, it's so offensive. We've locked down the show. Theatre can't be locked down. And it's because human beings can't be locked down. You know, I think it's really the same thing. For me, theatre, humans, it's a human enterprise. You know, Missy, before we do questions, which we should probably do right now, probably,
Yes.
because there's loads of it. Do you mind, Missy, if you're able to show my videos off that thing? I think you are. Is to show the We Are Human video.
Butterfly Theatre.
Yeah, if you look up We Are Human, I think it comes up quite fast. It's on our videos, I'm sure. But it's the one with all the little faces. We did lots of online work in Zoom.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, yeah. So we did online productions, and we started doing online productions where we did plays, but we were interactive but online. And one of our first projects was to look at the Shylock speech from The Merchant of Venice. Well, that's the online. It's probably. Mm-hmm. I think it's on. It's probably on our video page, actually, on the first page on Butterfly Theatre. It's probably videos where you found that other video. Oh, it's that one there. I think it's there on the right of this one. All the little people. Does it say We Are Human? No, it doesn't. That's Butterfly Online. That's
maybe.
Cool.
Who shared the video a while ago? Maybe
if anyone finds that while I'm talking about it. But when lockdown started and the pandemic started, I said immediately, I said, you know, it's a project I wanted to do for years. And I thought, right, I actually need to get on with this now. And I think it's probably at the end of that page, yeah. It must be on there. It's our main thing. It's, I don't know where it is. We Are Human. Not sure.
Here it is.
Yeah. So have a look at this video. It speaks for itself, hopefully. But yeah, we did this last year.
I am an African.
I am a teacher.
I'm an Essex girl.
I am an old age pensioner.
I'm a black man from East London.
Hath not a mother's eyes.
Hath not the refugee eyes.
As mulheres não têm olhos.
Hath not a European hands.
Hath not a Chinese hands.
Hath not a father hands.
Organs.
Dimensions. Senses.
Affections.
Passions.
Fed with the same food.
Hurt with the same weapons.
Subject to the same diseases.
Healed by the same means.
I am a Muslim.
Deaf child man.
Immigrant.
Aurat. Depressed person. Jersey girl.
Gay.
Mum.
Trekkie. Nerd.
Svensk. Christian. French.
A man.
Carer.
I am a black woman.
LGBT Jew.
I am a woman.
Warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer
as any human is.
If you prick us,
do we not bleed?
If you tickle us, do we not laugh?
If you poison us,
do we not die?
We are human.
Midfire ni salva.
Nous sommes humains.
Somos humanos.
We are human.
Melodia.
That's fantastic.
Oh,
that
I love it
so
so much.
And you did that online?
We did it online. I've been wanting to do it for years, ever since I'd been to a concentration camp. And I was so struck by the enormous tragedy of I couldn't understand how we didn't see each other as humans. How did humans not see each other as humans? I couldn't get over this idea and I started thinking about that speech of Shylock's, because when I was growing up, I saw that speech as relating to me being different, being brown, all the white people, I'm brown. And so I've always seen it as whatever you feel is your thing that makes you unique and different, might be the thing that makes you feel separated from people, but actually we are human. So I had this thing of, instead of Jew and Christian in the original speech, I just kept thinking, What about if everyone got to say I am? And we did it with young people in this concentration camp. So I had all these young people saying, yeah, I am this, I am that, I am this. And so I did it here. I've always wanted to do it because I thought, and when the pandemic started, that line, hurt by the same disease, healed by the same means. We this year, these 2 years have united, in my head, the world, whether we're united as a world or not. I mean, I've just did a workshop in Ukraine yesterday online. Can you imagine? So I'm talking to Ukraine teachers yesterday who want to create street theatre. Absolutely amazing project. But we are obviously divided in this world, but this has united us in that every human being on this earth shares something now, which is this experience. But we also remember that we share everything that is the things that make us human. So it's the idea that we are different, but we are human. We are united. So, questions.
We are similar in our difference, right? And I love how you use that.
But Shakespeare exemplifies it. You see a Shakespeare play and say, I am feeling what this character feels, whether they're male, female, whatever they are. I feel the emotion they're feeling. Everyone can feel like Othello, whether they're black or white, when they have felt completely separated from people, when they have been ostracized, when they've been put down. We've all experienced all the feelings. We say to actors, you can play anything because you felt it when you were a toddler and someone pulled a toy off you. You have felt rage in your body. Your body knows rage. So we've felt everything. But what we forget sometimes is that every human being has felt and can feel all those things. And that's the thing that unites us. And the great privilege to work in Shakespeare and work in theatre is we can express that. We can, but that's why the acting has to be so good. It has to be truthful. Because if it's truthful in that moment, the audience cannot help but feel that feeling in that moment. And then you match that with Shakespeare, we get all those words that then really do open everything up for us.
Eileen, you said that you do site-specific Shakespeare, and that's just brilliant. And now we've moved on to a different site, a different kind of immersion, which is online. Eileen wants to know, how can online theater retain the quality of being alive, given that actors can't receive the laughter, the silences, the gasps of the audience watching them in real time?
Yeah, really good question. So we did these shows online last year. We have got them and we do them now still. We did a Christmas Carol for Christmas, which was lovely. And we're developing Midsummer Night's Dream. We did a whole show that was a Shakespeare love scenes for Valentine's Day. And what we got is the audience, in fact, to do some of the lines. So they actually were part of it. It was truly interactive. So we gave out in advance the lines and the cues. And so they'd pop up on the screen and suddenly Tiny Tim would have some lines and they'd go away again. And they'd throw snowballs at the screen. Do look at our videos. You'll see all the trailers for the online stuff.
So it's like a direct engagement. That's with the
all it's about. I'm telling you, if you have truthful connection. I love teaching now on Zoom. And I'm now actually shifted the company. So there's a whole thing to do with online work. Because actually teaching Meisner on Zoom has been exceptional because you can't get away from the truth. The camera doesn't lie. So interesting for our work, it's really helped us expose when we rehearse the beats that are not truthful, because you can see it. It's just so clear. Everyone can see it. It's magnified. So it means it forces us to be very truthful. We've had to be incredibly creative of creating the world behind us, but coming into your screen, passing something over and someone else collecting it. All those fun things. My God, it's so fun to develop that way of working. But at the heart, that question is very interesting. At the heart of it is the truthful connection we have with the other actors. And I'm telling you now that a screen does not diminish that at all. If you have an intention to be in truthful connection, if my performance is dependent on you, I still have to see you clearly. I have to respond to you moment to moment. That engagement reads right. Online, it reads live, it reads everywhere. It's that dependence on the other actor. And it's that agreement to say, I'm with you. I don't know what you're going to do next. And I'm excited about that. I'm ecstatic. Is what you're going to do good or bad for my objective?
Right.
And that is it. Do you know what I mean? And I work with objectives in a huge way, particularly with Shakespeare. I'm building on Cicely Berry's work. I worked with her a long time ago, and she really helped me to, oh my God, I can't describe how amazing that was to have her in my life and to work with her on Shakespeare. And she did this incredible work and about finding the need to speak. Mm-hmm. And Tracy's worked with her loads. And so Tracy's work's always really aligned with Cis's stuff. But the need to speak means that you have to find an objective.
And how that gets you your objective. And the speaking of it gets you closer and closer until it actually becomes yours.
Yes. And I'll give a little example, just one thing for teachers, which is a really easy thing for them to grab hold of. You ask a teenager how they get you to change their grade. You've graded them, they want you to change the grade, or a teenager trying to get money off their parents. So I'll do this with you, Missy. Where is the teenager's attention?
On their teacher.
They come downstairs. They come. They see the teacher and they're on the teacher, and they're looking to see if the teacher is in a good mood or a bad mood. Aren't they? They are. So interestingly, a student's attention is absolutely out. They're not thinking, what should I say? What should I say to them? What should I do? They're going, is she in a bad mood? Is he in a good mood? What mood are they in? First thing. Then they go moment to moment reading the teacher. When the teacher slightly frowns, what do? When it's not working, what do?
They change tactics.
They change tactics. That's it. Literally, that's it. 2 words. They change tactics.
They start crying, please change my grade.
Yes. And when the teacher looks even more angry at that point, what do?
They change tactics again.
So if it's not working, change tactic. And this is a lesson in acting here, everyone. If it is working, what do you do, Missy?
Keep at it.
Keep going. So one of the conditions is about objectives, and my 5 conditions is objectives. And this is something that teachers can really use very effectively. Do a little session where you set them up where they do improvisations, where teachers are kind of trying to get students trying to get grades of teachers, or they're trying to get money off their parents, is what we tend to do in England, actually. That doesn't seem to work in all countries, I've realised, actually.
It'll work very well here.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the children trying to get money off their parents, and parents trying to get children to clean their rooms.
Oh, wow.
It's that engagement. So these things, I use real life, everyday objectives, so everybody knows how to do it. And by the way, that's the other reason teenagers make the best actors, because they are dependent on adults. Right. We forget this. Teenagers are entirely dependent on adults for everything.
And they resent that.
A baby is the same, aren't they? A baby is the same, but a baby cries. That's all it can do. But as soon as people have words, language, they have to use their words to get you to do things. So teenagers and children are developing language as a way to get what they need. And that's how we have to think about characters. So it's worth doing that analogy exercise as improv, because what happens is teenagers will throw out hundreds of tactics: blackmail, bribery, bartering, flattery. They do them all. They
all
just
different
do
kinds.
them. And you say, look at Shakespeare. Let's look at the tactics now that this character is doing, that Lady Macbeth is doing to get Macbeth to kill the king.
So it's about finding what the teenagers and the kids or the students do in real life, and how the same thing is happening in Shakespeare. Are there kids, Eileen, that can relate more readily to Shakespeare? And are there kids that have the kids who have the least appreciation for Shakespeare? Is there a way of getting them activated in it?
I think the way to get them activated is to perform it and to give them high stakes. So as soon as you've done that little game about tactics, you then stick a scene in there and you say, right, well, Lady Macbeth's trying to get Macbeth to do something, and the stakes are really high. So you get them to think about stakes for themselves. What matters to me? Child, not Macbeth. We don't know what it's like to want to be king, but we do want to be head boy of the school, head girl, or we do want to get a really high grade. So you get them to make it matter. So you find a way to let it matter. So what if it really matters? So then you push them against someone else that has something that really matters. And now you have a scene is this. This is all a scene is. And then the magical ingredient in this is the phrasing of the objective. So how would you phrase an objective, Missy? Sorry to put you on the spot, because you must have done objectives. How would you sort of just talk about it?
I need this from my scene partner. I will make him feel a particular way so that
great.
he or she will give it to me.
So the first thing that you said is something that we sometimes say is the only thing, which is I need this. And sometimes we say, I want, I this, I the other. The problem there is a Meisner actor is trained to look at you. It's all about you. I made my conditions all rooted in looking at the other person. So you can only get them if you're connected to the other person. So instead of I want as an objective, I really would say this to teachers, you transform your lives if you just word it, get them to. So the students
my objective is to get you
them to
get
the other person to do something. So get them to respect me, get them to trust me, get them to
collaborate,
take me seriously, get them to collaborate, get them to play with me. Get them to is the phrasing, not
rather than I want. Love that.
I want them to trust me, because if you're saying get them to, you have to look at them to see. And I'll shock you now. The only thing I say in rehearsals, the only phrase I use in a Shakespeare rehearsal often is it working? Because what happens when you hear that phrase, you have to check. And if it's working, you keep going. And if it's failing, you change tactic. And the thing is with Shakespeare, it's that simple. But Missy, I'm telling you, that's all I do. I'm about to write a book about how simple to act Shakespeare is. I realise I've resisted that for so many years because it feels, I'm trying to prove that I'm a serious academic ego and a serious theatre maker. So I have to make it sound difficult, but it's not difficult because Shakespeare is the humanitarian. You know, it's the human thing. So you go for the most simplest thing. We know how to do this in life. The characters are doing this in life. They have something that's important to them. They've got to get someone to do something.
Eileen, that is so amazing. You have taught us so many incredible things in this hour and a half, and we have to take you here. We have to bring you here. Yesterday you were in Ukraine.
Oh gosh.
Today you're here, but we're gonna bring you back here. We're gonna make sure you hold a workshop with actors, with teachers, and if you are going to say one last thing, because it's unfortunately 6:23, and we have to go on a short break before we restart our stuff. How can we, what is something that you want the audience to leave with today? Like, what do you want them to look forward to in engaging Shakespeare in the classroom?
What I want them to look forward to engaging Shakespeare, oh my gosh, is that you can totally give young people the ability to express the massive amount of emotions that are in their hearts. You know, if you really bring Shakespeare to them in a way that says this person is suffering like you suffer, or is having a good time like you're having a good time, you get them to relate it to their lives, then suddenly they are so happy to be able to express it. And I think when you bring Shakespeare in all the kind of the physical stuff as well, the fighting, the running about stuff with Shakespeare, you know, the lovers fight, it's amazing. Romeo and Juliet fight. Don't shy away from those big physical moments in Shakespeare when you're teaching it in a classroom. Go outside. Actually, that's the thing I would say. Go outside. Get somewhere in your environment. Put Macbeth in the kitchens of the school cafeteria. You know, put the witches climbing on the climbing frame. You know, if you do it outside, you can really transform how they feel about it, because you're breaking the rules already. I really would encourage you to break the physical rules of a theatre, but break the physical rules of Shakespeare and make it something that people want to speak to each other.
Wow, well, that's great advice. Eileen, promise me you'll come to the Philippines.
I will. And you know, Missy, I just wanted to do a shout out to Leon Pexham, who I know is on this call. Leon came and worked with us in the woods. He'll tell you, talk to him. He is in the Philippines. He's there. Look, I'm here.
Yes. He's going to help us. He's going to help us bring you here, either by Zoom or in person. And we're going to make it happen.
Definitely do some stuff on Zoom. But I think really, please do know that, the only last thing to say is that to remind you all that we are all unique. And the most important thing about that is our contribution. You know, every time we contribute, every time you come to a talk like this, every time you speak or you write something down or express it in any way, whether it's academic, whether it's artistic, in any single way, as soon as you express it, you're contributing to this world. And not just to our friends, our families, our countries. You know, that contribution is unique. So if you don't bring it, think about this for a second, the world will not have it.
Wow.
And that's just a fact. I'm lucky enough to have been able to say it to people to remind us of it. But it is literally a fact. And you say that to students, by the way, it's a fact. So we're able to say it to anyone.
You're the only one who can give what you can give.
Yeah, in every capacity. Because even if you say the answer to a question, only you are saying it in that moment. You know, so it's that thing that's
wonderful.
It's very, very special. And it's when students realize that you want to see their Romeo, their Juliet,
and no one else's.
Yeah, there's a real sense of ownership then. Oh, Missy, it's been brilliant.
So
I'm so sorry I was in and out, but
no,
hopefully we managed to get through that. Thank you, Tracy, for saving the day. That was great.
We accept things as they are, and we look forward to having you again. Thank you so much, Aileen.
Oh, it's been brilliant. Thank you. And I'm going to try and get this chat off you all because it's so brilliant. I'm going to see if I can do that. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Sorry I haven't been replying to things.
We're going to ask Nikki to take over now. And Eileen, this will not be the last time. This will be the first of many, many times with Aileen Gonzalez. Thank you so much.
Thank you.